it away.
Jinashi, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Studio Taidu, its continuing mission to explore strange new tone colors, to seek out new flutes and new compositions, to boldly play what no Shakuhachi has played before. All right.
Are you proud of yourself?
I am.
Okay.
I know you don't. You don't understand Star Trek, so
That's fine. Eric likes your intro.
Yes, it's it's a labor of love. What can I say?
Absolutely.
Is this good here? Or?
We'll move it a little bit more here.
There we go.
And so on. So why don't you give us our actual intro of what we're doing today?
Welcome to another live stream from Taidu Studios. This is live stream number 42. Oh, 42. Life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So today we have a very interesting plan. We're going to deviate from our usual stuff where we'll still take questions from chat, but we're going to deviate from our usual stuff and talk about the new Taidu Jinashi.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very cool. Do you want to give the blurb?
So of course, I think most of the people who watched the live stream have seen the update, the video. They might have seen the posts and the stuff like that. So you're aware of this long awaited product that Nick and I have been developing, and really finding something that captures the essence of Jinashi and really does sound like a Jinashi flute. And there might be naysayers, but honestly, I think that this is as close as we're ever going to get to the Jinashi in terms of a 3D model. And the amount of hand work that's required to make this thing is just astounding. It's been a lot of time, a lot of trial and error. So today what I want to do is, instead of me playing it, because you guys can go hear me play it, and on the video I have all of the raw audio up there. I have all that stuff up there. So I want to hear you play it today, and I want to get your questions about it.
All right. So first things first, it's the feel of it is it's very light, but it's not so light that it feels like you would immediately say, "Oh, this is not bamboo." Seeing it laying on a table or just like walking up to it, it just looks like a lacquered bamboo flute. And the only detail that kind of gives away that that something different is going on is the Utaguchi. There's no insert, but the feel of it feels quite similar to my flute. Mm-hmm. It's a little lighter than my flute. And I got about 5 minutes on this flute, so.
Yeah,
nice.
You actually got a Muraiki out there.
That's nice. Really nice. That Muraiki is actually better than my main flute. That's irritating. Yeah. As far as the feel, like finger holes feel very similar to my flute, which is my flute's a little weird, but it's a Jinashi. And the chin feels very similar to my flute. The blowing edge is just a tiny bit, I would say, less sharp than my flute, but it doesn't seem to matter really. I think my flute's just more fragile.
Yeah, I think the Utaguchi is probably more shallow too for this one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really pretty, and it's also got a lot of character. Like this, I would say that the tone that I'm getting out of it's not a whole lot different from my main flute.
Did you already put your flute away?
My flute's right there. I
Yeah,
can
do you want
grab
to
it.
grab it?
Here.
Yeah. And
Um,
of course, we'll take any questions about this too. So if you have any questions that you have specifically about this flute and like the making process and whatever, um, that would be good. Yeah, you're
so
welcome to do
this
that.
is my main flute, Yozon. So maybe a tiny bit louder, but yeah, I just think that this flute's probably got about the same profile in terms of
Can you just
dynamics.
play? Can you play just row on both of them? So play row here.
Uh,
Play row on yours. So this one has a deeper profile. It's a lot more warm.
yes,
And it's closer. It's again closer to the classical jinashi because it has the fushi on the inside, so the bamboo nodes are still there, and so that's what you get. You actually get more of that kind of bubbly back pressure on these flutes than you would on the modern
yeah. And
flutes.
I said earlier, I noticed when I put my cleaning cloth through this,
Mm-hmm.
the way it felt pulling it through is not the choke point down here where the bore is kind of
That
constricted
actually
is
doesn't exist on
doesn't
this.
exist.
Yeah.
It's much the cleaning cloth pulls right straight through with no effort. My flute, there's a real noticeable choke point later
Mm-hmm.
towards the end.
Yeah, so yours would be like a modern jinashi. This is a classical jinashi bore profile.
And this has a very like it's super easy to play. Like
Mm-hmm.
picked, first picking it up, no problem playing it. Like I say, before we started, I've got like 5 minutes on this flute, and it's already feeling pretty natural. Yeah, it's really easy to play and does not feel significantly different from any bamboo flute that I've played.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I would say that it's got a kind of I don't know, it's just very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've played a lot of flutes that have like, sharper holes or that
Mm-hmm.
the holes I guess also the holes these holes are very, very similar in size, if not exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really don't feel any difference in them. And then for that kind of action rolling off feels really good, really smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So the flute that this is based on,
Mm-hmm.
it was 3D modeled and then a bunch of handwork done afterwards, right?
Yes. So Nick made the flute first,
Hmm.
and then he scanned his own flute, and then he modeled it and changed like the internal bore profiles to for like the fushi sizes and stuff like that, and then expanded the length a little bit so that it would be tuned to D,
Hmm.
right? So it's more because the first model when it came through was an E flat,
Wow. Okay.
right? And so this model is just a little bit longer, because do you not like they're notoriously difficult to get in tune, the jinashis. So that's what the nice thing about the computer is that we could mess around with things. And then so basically the outer shell of the bamboo gets made, right? And then afterwards the holes are drilled in and the utaguchi is cut afterwards. So all that's post.
And the fit and finish is beautiful. The lacquer work, I don't know if you guys can see, but like the lacquer work here is
Mhm.
really pretty.
I have to go a little bit closer for it to see the lacquer work on the inside. There's
Yeah.
like the red on the inside. Of course, there's pictures on my website as well of that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's also, the the texture on the outside, it's just urushi, so it doesn't feel like has that
Mhm.
weird plasticky feeling.
So how would you compare it to like the Shakuhachi U in terms of because
The U,
that's what people know.
the Shakuhachi U always felt well. It's heavier for one thing.
Yeah.
The U is a lot heavier, but the U always felt like, I don't know. It was like a tool handle,
Hmm.
feeling. It was sort of
Uh,
weird plasticky
yeah,
feeling.
and that kind of that greasy. Sorry,
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
like almost a petroleum kind of feeling, and this and smell. This has nothing,
Yeah.
no smell at all. And I mean, even my flute, for a long time smelled like a campfire because it
Yeah.
smoked, and I can still smell that a tiny bit
Hmm.
when it's really warm. This is just inert. Like, I don't
Hmm.
smell anything. And I think that the other thing that is impressive to me about this is that I'm not I don't have to work very hard to make this flute
Hmm.
do what I want it to do. And I always felt like when I've played the U and when I've played, anything else that was alternate material,
Hmm.
I've always felt like you could say, "Oh, I'll get it eventually." Like if I
Hmm.
played this for a month, it
Yeah.
would sound better. And that's not really the case here. This sounds okay, like right off
Yeah,
the
because
bat.
I mean, the aesthetic part of it is that Jinashi, like in this style, are not meant to be, trying to be pushing to get a lot of sound out of them.
Right.
Rather, it's breathing into the flute. So the concept in playing, that's why it's more designed to be like a honkyoku and sangkyoku flute, not a contemporary music flute.
Well, and I think, like you said, with the tuning, it's a Tawadi.
Yeah.
If I don't move my head, I mean, the tuning is not. I've seen Tawadi flutes that were really in your face,
Yeah.
like really noticeable, and it's not hugely noticeable on this instrument. Like I don't feel like I have to make a huge amount of correction.
And that's due to the fushin, or not, not fushi, the utaguchi cut being not as deep as they normally would be.
Right.
So, like,
If
I don't, and Yozan doesn't usually cut his that deep either.
I mean,
So
if you
yeah.
compare these two, these are
Mhm.
quite similar, but there is a different feel with mine, and I think that for a new player or a player who's trying to get like their first serious, like I want to play honkyoku properly flute, I said I wish this had existed, you know 7-8 years ago when I
Mm.
was playing for flutes, because I've gone through 3 or 4 1.8s to get to where I'm at now, thousands of dollars. And
Mhm.
if I could have purchased this and played it, from the very beginning all the way to the end of the repertoire, that would have been nice. I wouldn't feel bad going on stage to play anything with this, right? Even that kind of effect is easy to accomplish, and
Mm. I like the bubbly sound of the koro koro.
yeah, it's really, again, it's very similar to my flute. It feels a lot like my flute.
So let me ask you this then, and of course I want you to also ask me questions that arise from it. So
Mm,
what do you think? Our biggest concern was, well, because of how much work it comes into, like just the lacquer work alone is worth about like $800 on it.
yeah.
So the price point of it's a 1,100. What do you think about that?
Well, when you look at like Yozan beginner flutes that are $700 or $800, and they don't offer. I mean, the Yozan beginner flutes are great flutes. They're a great place to start
Hmm.
if you really want, bamboo. That's the best thing you can do to start with. But they don't offer, I think, the same kind of flexibility of color that I'm feeling here.
Yeah.
And I think that just in terms of durability, like when you're new and you aren't used to having a flute, that's when you're going to break it. That's when you're
Hmm.
going to smack the Utaguchi into a table or something.
Sure.
Or, if you have children, that's what happened to my.
Mm. Yeah, and I think here too, like the point that you're mentioning about color. I mean, that's why we know it's we modeled it this way is because it's just for like mainly for honkyoku. I
Yeah.
mean, you can play the folk songs, you can play minyo on it, but that's not what it's designed for.
Yeah. And it feels like, with, I like to say, I feel like if I took this home and spent some time with it, I would, it's almost interchangeable with my flute, except in terms of dynamics.
Yeah,
My flute can be louder, but
yeah. I think that the sound profile is quite different too, though, because you're like play
well,
like the opening line of Hon Shirabe, like maybe play the first two lines of it, and then we'll hear it on your flute.
And on my flute,
Yeah, they're very different. And
yeah,
so, what do you notice on your end
what I
before?
mean, what I mean in terms of interchangeability is like the ease of play. There's not a dramatic difference in the way they feel or the way that it feels on my
Okay, I
face.
understand.
No, the color is quite different, but I mean, in terms of
Hmm.
being able to pick this instrument up and play it successfully after you've rehearsed on
Yeah.
the bamboo, it's not a big shift.
Hmm.
Now, it's something we talk a lot about. I see people all the time in Discord saying, "Oh, I got a new flute, and I feel like I'm back to square one because I have to learn how to play
Yeah,
this
yeah.
flute." And that's not what I'm finding at all with this instrument.
Hmm.
And I'm not always great at picking up new flutes and being able to play
Sure, sure.
them. There are some flutes that are
Hmm.
quite like Yokosui flutes, and we don't we don't get on.
Sure. Now, what's the price point on your flute?
This flute new would be about $4,000,
Okay. Yeah.
and I mean it's part of that is because it's Susurake smoked bamboo. I mean that's the big issue.
Hmm.
And this flute doesn't have a lot of bling. Like there's no gold or anything up here. You know, it's not super decorative. Even the foot is quite plain.
Hmm.
But yeah, it would be like 4 grand. And so comparatively, if I were new player or even a player that's committed, like you've been playing for a while and you want to do this,
Hmm.
this is I think a really good price point, especially knowing the durability
Sure. So,
of
what
it.
are your questions about it that are you?
I think the main thing that I'm curious about is just like what do we know in terms of durability? I know you guys have tested it. Like what was the torture process? And why was I not invited?
Oh, yeah.
If
So,
anyone's gonna break a flute, it's me.
yeah.
So
Well, the main thing is the drop test. It has to make the drop test, which is on tatami, on carpet, on hardwood, and then on concrete.
Mm,
And where a lot of the other instruments that we've made prior to, when you did the drop test, like on I think on one of the like pet bottle plastic, like if you
PET.
yeah if you dropped that on a hardwood floor, it would split into three pieces and it just wouldn't hold up. And so the resin is the only one that would do that, minus like Teflon, which is unbreakable.
But
Like
rubbery.
it's rubbery and it can bend, and then the sound is not good. So out of all of them, I mean, you played the pet plastic one that
Yeah.
was black, and I mean, just the sound profile comparison between the two,
There's no comparison.
yeah, it's way better.
The PET flutes didn't have the same amount of color.
Yeah,
And they're much harder to play.
yeah, they were a lot harder to
A
play.
lot harder to access the proper angle and whatnot. And also, I didn't like the feel of the whole profile on those. They felt strange to my fingertips. Plus, they did not have. I could not get a third octave out of them. And on my flute, the highest note I can consistently play is that B flat six,
Yeah,
and that's pretty impressive.
yeah, yeah. It does have, even though it's a jinashi and it's made for honkyoku, it does have the third octave
Yeah.
completely.
And I think that kind of that kind of reach I have not seen. I don't think I've seen anybody, any of the alternative material flutes that
Hmm.
I could do that regularly.
Hmm.
And also, did this have? I know you went through like a lot of iterations
Yep.
on it, and were you looking for like were you trying to imitate a specific flute from the past? And you said Nick
Yeah,
made the
yeah.
new Jinashi.
So the idea that I wanted was I wanted something that had a modern feel but had the color of the past.
Hmm.
So unlike the old style jinashis where it has a very very thin like fipple part of the flute,
Yeah.
don't have barely any dynamic range. So here with the deeper Utaguchi cut that's still within the classical range, it gives us more of that. The hole size is slightly larger than what a classical, old flute style would be, which is much thinner hole.
Yeah, it's closer to the modern.
Yes, there's modern ideas about it, so you can play Honkyoku in the modern sense. Like we're going to be using the Miyakobushi scale and so on and so forth.
So, what do you? I guess the big debate then becomes, uh, is it Jinashi? Like people say, what is Jinashi? And they
Hmm.
have this theory about Jinashi is raw bamboo, just knock out the membranes and you're done.
Hmm.
And my understanding is that, like, yeah, that's nice, but that's not how Jinashis actually are.
It's actually a lot of really fine tuning on the nodal points. It's
Right.
nodal tuning. That's one version of Jinashi. So when we say Jinashi, what we really mean is that there is no G lacquer. Or sorry, G paste
G
into it,
paste.
right?
Right.
So the G paste is that Tonoko powder, urushi, and water mixture that creates kind of like a very hard concrete like substance in the inside, right? So it'd be similar to like, a cast bore. I would still consider that into the G adi, even though it does not have G paste in it. The cast bore functions as the same thing, right? Or if you say like I don't know, whatever other material that they've used in the past that to replace G, that kind of bore profile is much more in the idea of what a Giadi is. Now, they did make bore profiled shakuhachi that are similar to Giadi that are Jinashi, right? And so that's where like the lines get blurred a little bit because it doesn't have the paste and it's just the raw bamboo, but like lacquer is built up to make that shape,
Mm.
right? And so then it's kind of like, well, it's not Giadi, but it's not like it's Jinashi, but it has like a more of a bore profile shape like that. Now, the reason why I like to call this one a Jinashi is because it uses the nodal tuning, which is the classical way of tuning the shakuhachi and creating pressure points, like little kind of air chambers on the
Mm.
inside of the flute. So that's part of the philosophy of making the Jinashi. That's what makes it the Jinashi flute. And that's what Nick specializes in. That's how he makes all of his flutes, and that's what I wanted because everything on the market for a flute like this is done in like the modern bore tapering down to that,
Choke point.
yeah, to the choke point and then back out. Or even if the bore is more wide or open, it doesn't have the nodes in them still. This is the first one that I've seen that has the nodes inside the shakuhachi.
So, like, essentially, Jinashi, the main sort of concept or main sort of difference is that the Jinashi style tuning is a subtractive process.
Yeah.
It's sanding and removing material, where Giadi is an addition of material.
Yeah.
And when you play this, like, it's very obvious that it's very straight flow through.
Yeah, and you
And
can still see the nodes, right?
sure, sure.
So, like I guess I can kind of show you this a little bit
The
on.
the back pressure is a little different too.
Yes, and so there's a reason for that, and that's what I kind of want to explain.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's actually what I'm noticing now that I'm messing with it a little more. The back pressure is very different on my flute. I get a lot more to push against.
So if you imagine that this is the tube of the shakuhachi, right? So this is how most of the bore shapes work on the inside of the modern shakuhachi. They look like this. Okay, like very cruelly drawn, right? They start big, they go down to a choke point, and then they flare out a little bit afterwards. That's
And you
how,
can. I mean, I can see that
yeah.
in my flute.
And so that's the way that they did it. That's how they do it today. That's pretty much how most of them work. Now, there's another way that they used to do it, which looks like this, where it just kind of comes down and then it goes straight out afterwards. This was also a really common way of doing this in like the early 1900s. But that way is also not done either. Can you grab me? There should be another piece of paper over there that I should be able to grab. If not, I can just grab it from the printer. But
I see mostly scores over here.
okay, let me just grab one from the printer really quickly. Okay, so now the way that jinashis are made on the inside in the classical way is that you utilize the nodes. So you'll have an open, a kind of a big open chamber, a less open chamber, and then an even less open chamber, and then a kind of a chamber like this. So you get like this sort of shape. And what you use for tuning the flute to balance out both pitch, back pressure, and tone is you shave down these red circles, which are all the nodal nodal points, and that's what you're working with. You don't touch the inside of here at all. It's always these little nodal points, and that's what how this flute was made. That's why it's like philosophically why it's a jinashi. It's not just because it doesn't have like that sort of bore fixture. The actual way of tuning it is how it was done in the Edo era.
Okay. And as far as the goal of this instrument, like
Hmm.
your idea for this instrument was to give people something for travel purposes and also like unbreakable,
Yeah,
whatever. Um, how do you,
it's not unbreakable. I mean, I'm
I
sure
mean,
you
yeah,
can break it, right?
you just give me a week.
Yeah.
But I think that the the big question that a lot of people would ask is like, is this a flute that's more for an intermediate or advanced player, or is it intended for the beginner?
Well, that's why we like the price point for it. I would try to keep it as low as possible, right? And again, like the you need a $10,000 printer. You need the block of the cost of resin is $500 a block, right? And that only makes I think two or three flutes.
Wow.
Whereas plastic, it's like a tenth of the price of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, just the lacquer work alone with Nick, which Nick has been studying lacquer for I don't know 10 years now,
Yeah.
and it's that doing one flute like this is about $800. So already it's like you're basically getting the lacquer work for free on this flute. Um, the idea is that we wanted to give something that was of highest quality that we possibly could that people could get without having to order a jinashi and wait 6 months to a year, or if they're on back order, 2 years to get a flute. Something they could have right away, that they can use for honkyoku and for sankyoku and playing classical shakuhachi music. It's a travel flute, but I think that at the same time, you can use this easily as a professional.
You hand this to a student and say, "This will take you all the way through, to Shihan."
It depends, right? Because like for us, like for me, if you're wanting to do like that sort of course and you want to do contemporary music, I wouldn't use this for contemporary music.
Right, right. But I mean,
But
like the Hankyoku element of our repertoire all the way up
yeah,
to the
for
Shihan
all the way
book.
to the Shihan book, easily you could use this flute, no problem whatsoever. I really believe that the sound is fantastic.
I'm really impressed. Actually, it sounds it's like I say. I'm just shocked that it's so easy to switch from one to the other. It is so similar in feel
Mm,
to my flute, but it has like a different character than
yeah.
my flute. Okay, so the other question is, and this is sort of us for some people it's a selling point, and for some people it isn't, is the fact that these flutes should all generally be basically about the same.
And they won't be.
Okay, so do you feel like there's going to be a lot of variation from one instrument to the next,
I
or
wouldn't say it's going to be something that you would be like shockingly different, but there will be different eccentricities about the flute because the 3D printer makes mistakes.
sure?
All right, and those mistakes that are in there are what's going to give it some interesting tonal variations as well.
So it has
Um,
artifacts just like something that
yes,
was organically grown, except that
yes,
the
and
cause of the artifact is like random manufacturing
and you
issue.
have to remember that the lacquer on the inside's hand done, so even a tenth of a millimeter difference does
Sure.
make a difference on shakuhachi and when it's made in this style. So that will also change the tone color. So how
Okay.
the urushi is put in, and there's no way in hell that Nick is going to be able to replicate that
Sure.
perfectly every single time.
I was just curious
It's
because like I've gone to Yozan's shop and like picked up Jinashis that he has on display,
mhm.
and some of them I've been like, wow, this is great, this is warm fuzzy, love it, and then the one right next to it, I'm like, I hate this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I would say here because the model is the same, you're going to get generally a very similar tone, but there will be different artifacts on every single one, and of course the holes are drilled in. The they're going to be slightly off from each other as well.
And orientation of the holes left and right and whatnot.
Yep, and there will be little tiny things like that that will change it and make the flute slightly different from one to another.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I noticed is that these holes are like very, very straight in line with the Utaguchi, and that's something that my flute, I've gotten used to it, of course, but my flute is just a little off. Like the holes are not
Hmm.
perfectly in line with the Utaguchi.
Sure.
Um, so, and it's the fit and finish on it is super high, like really, really smooth, feels really nice, and I I think like I have students that really this would be a great way for them to go
Hmm.
because I have several students that are like I don't want to play anything but Hankyoku.
Yeah. Then this would be the perfect fit for them. That's is exactly what they would need because, again, like you were even saying for your flute, just for a really good Jinashi price. I think that Nick's price right now for his flutes are like 3,500,
Yeah.
$4,000. Especially if you want to have like a lacquered finish, it's going to be even more. So it really is the budget option, but you're not sacrificing the tone for that.
And you could do something on this if you wished. You could do makie or whatever
Yeah,
up
you could do
here.
more things on it for
If
sure.
you want like Battlestar Galactica or something right there.
Yeah, so we're not offering any of those things right now,
No,
but
you can pay
yeah,
Nick extra.
yeah. But just keep in mind that like Maki is really expensive, especially
It's
with gold price right
it's
now.
made of gold.
Yeah, like if you grab the one down there, like each one of these characters here would be about $800 each. Which just so it's 800, so that's 12 or $1,600 just for those two characters.
This is not a time to be doing anything with gold.
No, this is definitely not the time. Wait until it crashes again. One of the questions here we have is any 2.4 or 2.0 other sizes in the making. Yes, we're working on a 2.4 model right now, but the thing is that the 2.4 Jinashi flute has to be made first. Then once that flute's made and scanned, then we can edit it and then start to work from it. And then the process repeats. Nick makes one, sends it to me, and then I approve it, or I say what I'm looking for and what I want and what I don't want for it. So
Nick's flutes, and for those of you who've never seen one of Nick's flutes, his the again the fit and finish, like the level of craftsmanship that goes into his flutes. I totally understand whatever kind of lead time he quotes. Like if
yeah.
I were to call him up and say I want this, and he said that's going to be 18 months or 2 years, I'd be like, I get it.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and we're gonna have him on the channel again. I'm gonna interview him specifically talking about this flute, and so that won't be a live stream, but it will be there. So if you have other questions that you want to ask now, and I'll be asking him these same questions again, so we can hear it from him directly. But yeah, please feel free to ask any questions you have about the flute now, and I'd be more than happy. So Svenya's question was back here,
About the
just a little,
tuning.
yeah. So maybe briefly explain and demonstrating again the tuning.
I'm
So
not really feeling it as much as I have on other flutes, but if I just keep my head completely still.
but you're also adjusting with your embouchure
Right.
as you're doing
I'm
it.
trying to hold still.
Yeah. There you go. So you see how you can hear how that chi is slightly sharp. So that's the Tawadi aspect of it. The
But it's
roll
not
that's-
I've played Tawadi flutes that were way worse than this. Like
Mhm.
way like you had to really, dip quite a bit.
Yeah, and it depends because Tawadi fits Jinashi really nicely. Okay, and that has to do with the nodal tuning. That's why it's so different when you play a Giadi that's Tawadi. It's really present because of the way the board profile is. Because the way this board profile is made to be able to adjust on every single note that you play, you can have something that's Tawadi and not actually feel like the note's that sharp.
Am I wrong in thinking that Tawadi flutes give a better ooh?
I think they do.
Yeah, I mean it's very flexible, and it holds up really well under that pressure. Yeah, that's really nice. Like I say, I wish this had existed 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, I wish it would have existed for me too. So if you're not a fan of the Giadi sound, which is that where you can get like a really big blasting, more of a brassy, more colorful overtones, then this would be the solution because this is more fundamental heavy. It doesn't have the brassiness
Mm.
that goes along with it. Now it can still honk. You
It
want to
can.
do you want to send the cloth through it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I'll kind of show a
Have you
few.
got? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I got one. They and before, of course, before getting on camera,
Mm-hmm.
I was playing it somewhat louder.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah. So
yeah, that
the
just and see that just pulled straight through. Like where
yeah.
my flute, I have to kind of fight with the fingernail. There you go.
And so that's me like I'm pushing on it, right? And
See,
that's
I couldn't find the point to push because when I pushed, I just jumped the octave. But like I say,
yeah.
I've only got a few minutes on the flute.
I mean, it has sound behind it if you
Sure.
want it, right? So, like, let's say if you play like a folk tune, though, like you can do it, right? And I think it sounds fine. But the problem with like folk music is that typically it's really loud,
Yeah.
so you got to be amplified. It's not going to work there.
Yeah.
But if you go to some like honkyoku piece,
And I noticed through that, like that Chimeri figure,
Mhm.
there was some very sort of pleasant kind of overtones and artifacts coming out in it, but it was still clearly the notes that you wanted.
Yeah, yeah,
Which I think a lot of times I don't know, especially with bigger flutes, we tend to get into a lot of just kind of fuzzy, messy,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
unclear playing, and some people like that, but
Mhm.
um, I'm not one of those people. So I find that a lot of the stuff that's just kind of mumbly, bubbly sounding, what have you, sort of loses the structure of what you're trying to play.
Sure.
And that was a kind of a pleasant half step, right? You got a little bit of an artifact in the middle of it, but it was
Mm.
still clearly Chimeri do,
Yeah, and also another thing too is that all of the techniques work out. So if you want to do horo horo, koro koro, uha goro, the chiru, alternate fingering, the nishigonoha.
Yeah.
That was a little bit harder. The B flat's there,
Yeah.
but I probably spend a little bit more time in the upper register. But again, for
For
honkoku, you
Honkyoku.
don't need that. Then
The
the
Maraiki
muraiki is
is
great.
very accessible.
Yeah, it's very easy to play.
Because Maraiki is like, my Maraiki is a 75%
Oh, hit
proposition.
rate. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's very, very accessible. Yeah. I feel really good about all the like alternative techniques. I don't think there's anything that it can't do. And it
Mhm.
because like I say, it feels so familiar.
Mhm.
Uh, and I've just had the experience of like switching flutes and having to like switching, for example, between a Yozan flute and a Gyokasui, or a Yozan flute and starts with
Takaharu.
Takaharu, and really substantial differences
Sure.
in feel, and also substantial differences in response time,
Mhm.
where things kind of sometimes have slow attack or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Mhm.
I'm not finding that to be the case. This, I mean, I don't know if Nick set out to make something that plays like a Yozan, but it does.
Yeah, well,
Sound wise, not so much, but in
yeah,
terms of the feel.
yeah, it's the like this being higher up. There's not a shave point here.
Yeah.
That's one of the main things as well. So, but yeah, so there you go. So if you have any other questions about that, feel free to ask, and then I guess we can go into the next portion of some stuff.
I
So
think that the a big question too with the 2.4 or
yeah,
2.0 larger sizes. You and I were talking about this before, and maybe
yeah,
the target is 2.4
yeah. 2.4 is the
in
next
A.
target. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
and the thing that people should know though is that it's not going to be 1,100. It's going to be more because it requires so much more resin
sure.
material, which means that the price is going to go up.
What is there a greater difficulty for Nick in making the longer flutes that don't have a Nakatsuki that are Nobicons? Like
Like,
a longer flute that's a Nobicon is harder to get in
yeah,
here and to yeah.
yes, it's very difficult. You have to have a very long stick with a sandpaper on the end of it here.
If you've ever seen somebody like I watched Nick at the last festival, like showing how tuning is done, and it's just a game of like tenths of a millimeter,
Hmm.
and it's I mean to me I don't have that kind of patience. It's effectively magic.
Yeah, you have patience when it comes to playing, right?
Yes,
He has
yes.
patience when it comes to making.
Yeah, it's effectively magic. You know,
Hmm.
he sits there and he's like with a tiny little bit of very high grit sandpaper and just and then he tests. And he comes back and goes.
Yeah, and
It's
you can get
like
like that for hours, like
yeah,
that.
it's like
So
three strokes at a time, and he tests and he listens and oh no, I maybe over here, maybe 2/10 of a millimeter to the right. It's a very painstaking process. So as far I mean, the price point does not alarm me at all, and I think it's a really good price point for compared to what else you might get for a travel flute in terms of like you can get a travel flute for
mhm,
200 bucks, right? But the
sure.
capability of that flute is
Yeah.
not great.
And then like something that else is like made like if you want something that's a powerhouse Giotti flute, then go get the Air Reed X. But then the thing is though is that you're gonna pay a lot of money for it.
The air reeds are crazy expensive.
I think it was like 4 or 5,000.
More. I saw one just the other day. I looked and it was like 8 grand, but it may have been because it had the additional joints or whatever. Because
Hmm.
the air reed, if I'm not mistaken, is the one that you can put in the different joints and make it different sizes.
Oh, they can do that.
Yeah, I think so.
That's cool.
If it's either that one or the one that's a knockoff of the air reed. Oh goodness, here we are on the all Japanese air reed page.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the. I want to look at the price of them.
Yeah. I don't know if he has prices listed. Like you kind of have to go and look at an actual for sale page.
Hmm.
The thing about the air reed that, the only thing that makes it appealing to me is the fact that it's just like this. It's very impervious to damage. But because it is a jointed flute, you still have to worry about the 390,000.
So this would probably be about 3 grand.
That's the bare bones like
The bare
yeah,
bone model.
yep.
Champagne gold. Oh, they have the Medi
Yeah,
inserts in there.
Medi slot.
Yeah, I don't like that, but that's just me. So those are both the champagne gold one
I've never
and
played
two.
a flute with a Medi cut, so I don't know how it feels. It wouldn't do me any good anyway, because I do my Medi like this. I dig into the hole, so
Yeah.
putting a slot at the top for me to cheat into wouldn't do me any good.
So I did play one of these, and I found it to be like really loud and very very
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
but the sound color of it was I felt like I was playing Western flute.
It's very competent in terms of like hitting the pitches that it's supposed to hit, but
Yeah,
the ability to bend it and whatnot is
it's
sort
also
of
heavy. I
limited.
think it's kind of heavy, very
They are.
heavy.
I have never played one. I've just handled one at a shop, and they did feel very heavy,
Hmm.
heavier than any of my flutes. Even I mean, I have that 1.6 that's
Hmm.
like I have a 1.6 that apparently is like the interior of it is made of depleted uranium. I don't know. it's like it's a great instrument too. It's a
Oh
beautiful
man,
instrument, but I have a 1.6 that outweighs my 2.1.
that's funny.
It's heavier than my 2.1.
Right.
But I don't know what the deal is, why it's so heavy. But the air reed was definitely heavier than any flute I own. So
Mm.
um, it says, um, I'm looking to see if we have any other questions here.
I don't think there's any other questions on the flute itself.
Okay.
So
So,
yep.
so those of you who are interested and want to see what the situation is, what's the lead time on these? If somebody places an order,
We have a bunch of them ready now,
okay,
so you can get one right away if you want one.
okay,
So I'll post that link again. We had our first order, and it was sent out today.
oh,
So
cool. So, and as far as customization is concerned, I was joking a little bit earlier about Maki and stuff, but if that's something that you really want to do, I see a lot of people, not in our community, but like on Facebook and whatnot, that are really interested in adding things to their flutes and making them so, like, if you want to have, like, a Warhammer dreadnought or something painted on here, right? This material is basically inert, right? It can accept.
well, the maki is a little bit of a different conversation because you actually have to put a base of urushi, but because there is a matte finish urushi on it, you can.
Okay.
Right? So like if you were to do like it on bamboo, for example, you actually draw out the idea like on in pencil,
Hmm.
and then you take a really small sand paper, and then you sand out the design.
Right.
Then you layer with urushi 6 7 times. Then you do the golds 10 times. So like if you're gonna do that, do realize that you're not gonna see your flute for about a half year.
Right. So, in other words, you can modify it, but like you don't want to modify it in a hazy kind of way. You want to
Yeah,
have somebody who knows what they're doing do it.
yeah, it's
And I think that
yeah.
that's. I imagine that
And also just look at Japanese pens where they have the takamakie on them. Look at that price. That's the price you're looking at when you want to do that kind of stuff. So
you want to
just
talk about fountain pens for a while?
no, 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 no,
He doesn't want to get me started
no.
on fountain pens.
Look, see, this is what I'm happy with. This, okay? I have. Where's my little fountain pen that I use? Yeah, see this one right here. This is enough for me.
What is it?
This is this one. WB.
WB. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's cheap. It was like $30, and that makes me happy.
I got my first like little fountain pen.
We're not doing this. Nope. No, we're not going fountain pens.
Okay.
It'll be
That's
the
fine.
rest of it will be fountain
It's
pens.
fine. I was in Vietnam and I got this fountain pen, and I hated it because it wrote like you dipped a nail in asphalt and tried to write with it. But then I got a real fountain pen, and it's the bomb.
Yeah.
No, the pens he's talking about, there's a huge market in Japan for Maki fountain pens.
Yeah.
And
they're very expensive.
they start at like $500 to $800 for really basic stuff. And
Yeah.
if you want the stuff that has chrysanthemums on it or cherry blossoms or whatever,
10,000.
there's actually a company here in Japan called Bungo Box. Is that right? Bungo Box? Bungo Box. Where,
Bungo box.
Bungo Box.
Yeah.
Where they will take the pen that you've purchased, even if it's just some little, $10 whatever pen, and they will maki it for you. And they even go to the extreme of, if you have a demonstrator pen, a clear pen where you can see into the ink, they'll clean out the ink well and maki on the inside of the pen.
Wow.
So that when you then put ink in it, the ink is behind the design, and the design like pops against the ink. And it also protects the design because, using the pen will wear off the maki eventually.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So they put the maki on the inside.
It does take a long time to get rid of maki because remember we're talking like, lots and lots of layers of it.
Yes.
But
And of course on a pen it's different because when you're using a pen to write, you're just rubbing against it constantly.
sure.
So even like really nice high end pens get a lot of wear marks on them.
Mhm.
But see, look at that, we're talking about fountain pens.
It's fine. It's more about maki than it is about fountain pens. All right. So, but anyways, yeah, I look at this was something that I think Eric was here when we first mentioned doing this particular model. It's been since even mentioning that it's been like 8 months.
Yeah, it's been in progress for a
So
while.
we originally oh no, I remember we originally wanted to have it ready for December of last year, and now it's June. So yeah, it's been about 8 months of like even just when we thought about actually making it as a product that we were going to sell. So yeah, it's really a lot of time and love has been put into this project to make it fantastic. It's not just scan a flute and then print it off. It wasn't like that at all. It was really made to be individual.
Yeah, the real goal, I think, and I've not really been doing anything with it. I've just been, hanging around listening to the discussions.
Yeah.
um, but the real issue was trying to get something that was not just portable and not just indestructible, but actually very playable
Yeah.
and those things.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I've been very hesitant. I've looked at a lot of other alternative material flutes because I would like to have something to just take hiking or whatever.
Hmm.
And I have been very hesitant to spend the kind of money that 200, 300, $500, that kind of range,
Hmm.
because I didn't want something that was basically going to be a toy,
Mm,
that was going to be like, yeah, you can play, really basic stuff on it, but you can't actually play any sort of advanced honkyoku on it, or play what you're practicing on your main flute when you're out hiking. You can't really do that. I feel like I could take this flute hiking and be able to work on repertoire if I wanted to.
hmm.
So it's really nice. Interesting that we were talking about the different sizes because we currently have uh, the word just escaped me. Poll. That's
Hmm.
it. We currently have a poll going on Taidu Shakuhachi about what are you looking for in your next flute, and the categories were bigger, smaller, prettier, or better. And overwhelmingly, people voted for better. And I'm glad to see that because in the past we've asked people about this, and everyone's like, "I want the 3.9," and I'm like, "All right,
Yeah. After
whatever."
after I did all of the CDs where most of the recordings were on the 3.0, like yeah. By the way, I should show like the matte finish.
Comparison of finish.
Like
The 3.0, the flute that I affectionately refer to as the drain pipe. Um,
so you can see the difference between the matte finish and the gloss finish too. Like so, there's big difference there. But it's
no fingerprints on this guy.
yeah, no finger. This as soon as you do this, now there's fingerprints, and now I
Yeah,
have to take a thing to it, clean it off. Man, I love this flute. The drain pipe.
the drain pipe.
Yeah, it drains all my energy.
I played it just a little bit the other day, and I was very proud of myself for actually being able to get a row.
Oh yeah.
Like my hands like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a beast.
I'll show some people something cool about this flute, which most people don't know. Now people will know is
What's that?
that this flute,
Yeah, it's actually reddish. Right?
yeah, when you put light on it, like when it's in the sun, it actually glows red in the middle joints here,
Yeah.
and then the ending here, see how it's there. So it has like this kind of glow to it.
Yeah, in the presence of orcs.
Yeah,
It glows.
that's right.
That's how you know. So if you haven't responded to that poll yet, by all means, hop on to Taidu Shakuhachi and respond. We got over 50 votes on it so far, which is good. I'm really pleased to see that the lowest category is prettier.
Yeah, that's nice.
That makes me happy. And then I also have another one here. We had another poll going on, which again, I am staggered by the response.
Well, because you always choose the wrong answer.
I do. When do you plan to buy your next flute? And the categories were now, take my money, right?
Okay.
Or in the next 6 months, in the next year. And then the final category was I'm beyond such material concerns.
Let me guess, that one was
is fine. And actually, my current flute is fine is 55%.
really.
Yes. Now, I don't know if that's because people really feel that way or, the economy's not great right now. But
Probably
yeah.
that one.
Yeah. I mean, in the next 6 months it was only 4%. I was like,
Wow.
where are all of our gear whores?
Yeah.
Like I don't understand. I'm glad that I got bitten pretty badly. I have quite a few flutes, but it wasn't as bad as I was with like guitars and ukulele. I lost my damn mind.
Mm. Well, I think that's part of it too. Just like that's guitar culture.
Guitars, you're always one pedal away from sounding like Eric Clapton.
Just one pedal away. That's right.
I just need that one tube screamer, and it's gonna work.
Yeah.
So
That's funny. All right, and then of course we have the new journal article that just was put live just now. So if you want to go ahead and read a little bit more about the flute and my more of my opinions on it in depth, you can check that out at the taiyushakuhachi.com. I'll post the link now.
we should also talk about merch. Uh,
Merch, yeah, buy
you're
t-shirts.
actually wearing. It's funny. I almost wore that T-shirt today
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
this one, yeah. So you can see the back, right?
Yeah, the back is super
Fuji.
cool. This was drawn by somebody in the studio, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of my students did the design for us.
Yeah. This shirt, which somebody commented on this shirt earlier, this is Amazon.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I don't know who is making Shakuhachi shirts and trying to sell them on Amazon, but it's
We
kind
bought
of
one.
it's actually a good shirt, like heavy duty material. These shirts actually really nice material. I have basically that exact same shirt, and it's holding up really well. If you're a big sweaty guy, you know that you sweat and then the shirt like loses its shape and then you put it through the wash and it's never quite right again.
That's right.
That is not happening with that shirt so far.
Yeah, so I wear these shirts a lot because one of the things that I really wanted to check about this was how many times can we wear it until it starts fading.
Yes,
This one's been in the wash like maybe 10 times now,
that's good.
and so all the designs are doing well. I used to use a different company before, and I didn't like the quality. Now I'm using a different company that's related to Squarespace,
Hmm.
and everything they printed for me has been fantastic. It really holds up.
There's another version of that design with the playing the flute in the lotus that has like a gold dragon wrapped around it,
Oh yeah, I like that
which
one
is
too.
really cool. Also,
I don't know why I didn't get that for us.
well, it's okay. I don't want to be too gaudy. It's not my yeah. Very very cool and very I don't know. It's just I think it's really nice to be able to rep your hobbies. And it's funny this shirt wearing this shirt in Japan. I get into more conversations with Japanese people with this shirt than with any other shirt that I own.
Hmm.
If I'm walking around, especially when I don't have the instrument with me, that's what always happens.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's of course, of course.
If I've got the tube and it's like sticking out of my backpack, they don't talk to me. But if I'm just walking around in this shirt, they're like, "Oh, Shakuhachi." Like, "Hi."
Yep. All right. Well, that brings us to time. So why don't you take us out?
All right. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And when you subscribe, you got to go in and hit the real subscribe button, which is the bell thing and the
Mhm.
owl. Okay. And also join us on Discord. Very friendly group of people, and it's getting bigger every day. And until then, row for 10.